Like and subscribe, follow the Instagram. Now let's dive. There's nothing quite like a missing loved one. It hits you right to the core. We all notice it, we all feel it, and it affects the community all around. To have someone you love and cherish right next to you 1 second and then just disappearing the next is beyond imagination and something I wouldn't wish upon anybody. But truly, based on available data, it's a relatively small portion of people who have felt that sort of suffering, or at least so we're told. Because simultaneously to that, we have the often cited statistic of over 600,000 people going missing in America every year, and only 485,000 of those people are found within the same year. So then that makes one question, how then we only have 20,000 active missing person cases? I might be dyslexic, but some math isn't really adding up there for me. And it makes me ask another question. If those are the number of people that have gone missing that we know of, what about the number of people that have gone missing who we don't know of? The ones we pass down the street every day, not the guy who turns in his man card for the soy latte from Starbucks, but the guy sitting outside the Starbucks, the one on the side of the street begging for money, or just a little help. What about those people? What happens when they go missing? Who actually asks the question of where they went? Enter this wild interview that came up for my recommended on YouTube from a man who interviews homeless people asking what's going on the streets. And the title of the video reveals a lot. It's about people encountering these missing homeless people who are just disappearing. And this isn't just some dude cracked out of his mind. He does seem pretty with it and is very well spoken. So I think it's worth giving him a listen.
What are you doing at the Republic Square right now?
I came to find a young mentally retarded woman that I was with yesterday, who I gave a bath and gave some clothes to. She's supposed to be sitting right here with one of my bags and a man named Adam.
Norman, are people disappearing?
Not here, as far as I know yet. They are in Houston.
Why are people disappearing in Houston?
They're being sold, sir. They're being trafficked to other countries.
Homeless people?
Yes, absolutely. Some of them are not homeless. They're just in the wrong place at the wrong time and they become homeless.
So we now have our first victims of this phenomenon, a man's stuff, and more importantly, the woman who was watching after it. It is certainly possible, one might suggest at this point in time, to say maybe she took it, but I think we're going to find out that's not quite true. And why I don't think so is because most see homeless as a group of individuals who stick to themselves, but in reality, homeless are basically their own community. A lot of them form groups that look after each other's stuff and that help watch out overnight so that nothing happens to them. Because in a world where human and sex trafficking is one of the largest industries, you can never be too careful or have too good of friends to look after you. Hence why a man in his 60s living on the streets is also taking care of what he refers to as a mentally retarded woman. You would only find this in a community where people care about and take care of each other. Because that is an act which strategically would make no sense. It's not resource efficient. Instead, this is something you do for another human out of the kindness of your heart. So then, like this video makes us question, we're going to have to ask, what happened to this woman and where did she go? And the answer is not simple whatsoever, because this woman is not alone. Her case is not one of one, it is one of countless. And it's these people who are the most vulnerable, who might be suffering what is the latest threat to the American homeless and possibly homeless everywhere. A threat more frightening than starving to death or dying of thirst. Something truly unimaginable. Something that attacks right at the heart of the very ecosystem that helps so many of these people survive. Now, before we continue, it's important to realize that every story from these people must be taken with a grain of salt, or several grains of salt, because we can't verify everything that is being said, but we do certainly get really solid chunks of information to use. It's fair, some of these people are truly drug addicts or are out of their mind, and that's unfortunate, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily wrong about what they're saying or what they're seeing. In fact, as we're going to see, it would appear that these people are far more vigilant than we are if what they claim to be happening is really occurring. But yes, it took me some time to piece this together from witness statements, but I think we have what might be the current story as we know it. And at its core, here's what these people are reporting and what is being seen. As homelessness has skyrocketed into hundreds of thousands and now millions, we are dealing with a very unique problem in American history, where you have a giant swath of people basically unaccounted for, and if something happens to them, who's really gonna know? Truly, we were at the point where hundreds of people could disappear off American streets and there wouldn't be much hoopla about it. And at its simplest level, that is exactly what the homeless are reporting. Other homeless are being snatched up and no one's paying attention. Sometimes entire friend groups have gone missing, hundreds of people in a night, or possibly the most frightening alternative, entire encampments or communities of homeless disappearing, vanishing, as I've seen said many times. And this all begins with some pretty innocuous stuff, it's reported. First, it's just a few guys in plain clothes that might look like you or I, who come out offering food or water, saying it's going to be all right, and saying that they might even have opportunities for you, which as someone living on the street would be a pretty appealing offer. And from the outside, from you or me, or from the homeless man or woman, this may appear like some giant act of kindness and empathy in the last vestiges of American society, where very little of that can be found. But very quickly, it turns out that something else might be afoot, because these same people that took the food and water began getting extremely ill and vomiting. And shortly after that, it's apparent to everybody that the food is not normal, and these same homeless are reporting that the food has been tainted. Okay, now that's odd. Right off the bat, something doesn't make sense. Massive amounts of homeless getting sick from food that they've been given. And it's these same people who we shall see a theme of who are arriving and offering this food from white vans or black vans or big SUVs. Never trust a white van, no matter who you are, that's for sure.
When you see these black SUVs driving everywhere, they sit here all night long and watch us and shit.
So, what is this in correspondence to?
We don't know. We don't know, dude. They give us food, and like a lot of people get sick from the food and shit, or they're saying there's stuff in it.
And you see Republic Square's all got all that construction
Yeah.
right there.
And now, like, it's weird. They took all the drug dealers out of Republic Square, but you can tell there's certain dudes they allowed to be there to peddle certain drugs, and the people that are getting them drugs are way up, like bad. Like out of their fucking mind, hurting themselves, fucking trying to hurt other people, laying down here underneath the bridge, dying, disappearing.
So some drugs that are trying to get rid of people.
Yeah.
It is worth listening to the whole interview because it gives you an idea of the full scope of the picture. The homeless man discussed what we have discussed here, but I also want to note something that we did not mention, which is the drug reference. Now, at first this may sound a little outlandish. Come on, they're allowing certain drug dealers to operate and sell incredibly powerful and deadly substances for the sake of killing people off or making them more malleable to taking them. I mean, sure, at first that sounds outlandish, but that's implying we live in a country that isn't corrupt. Because if you're a little more familiar with contemporary American history, you know that the CIA had a massive presence with the dealing of crack and the selling and creating of crack in black neighborhoods, which has caused so many of the problems we see today. It's very interesting. So this notion that tainted drugs are being distributed is not far-fetched at all and has its basis in history, recent American history. Continuing on, this man is located in Austin, Texas, and has been homeless for the past 3.5 years. And he has never seen anything quite like this. To the point, this guy won't even accept free food and water from basically anybody because he's worried about it being poisoned or tainted. That's saying something. Could you imagine being on the streets and being offered free food and water? You're starving, you get free food, and you won't eat it because you think someone might have done something to it? That must mean that this problem is far more pervasive than we are even aware of based on his testimony. As the interview continues, the guy filming asks what else this homeless man has seen, to which the homeless man replies, he has seen people who will disappear for a few days only to return, and when they do come back, they are completely silent about what happened to them. Nobody, no matter how many times they ask, can get a word out of them about what they saw or experienced. These, however, the ones that do return and are silent about it, appear to be the fortunate ones, as the rest don't seem to return. And as we'll continue to see, there's this common trend from homeless across the country. Some of the homeless in their groups will get pulled up on by vans, and then these people will come out of the vans and ask them if they want help, or simply if they want a place to sleep for the night and some food and water. And if you're homeless, that's hard to deny, so they do take it. And in most instances, these people, they don't return and no one knows what happens. But there are some organizations that have kept at least vaguely detailed notes that this is happening. And one of those is Sunrise Navigation Church, which is a homeless center in Austin, Texas. They have a board for the missing people who are homeless that they are getting reports about. And the goal of those is to have family members or other homeless try and find them or reach out to them. But in this interview, this guy who mentions this Sunrise Navigation Center also says that they have over 285 missing posters up for the homeless right now, which doesn't really make sense to me if we consider that there's only 20,000 active cases. Are you trying to tell me that over a full percentage point of them are in one city alone in America within the past year? And considering that Sunrise Navigation Church only has a grasp on a part of the homeless population that they can help, how many others are missing who have never been to Sunrise or go to a different facility where they don't take that sort of notation? Like, what's going on? Are there then 5, 6, 7, 1,000 people missing in Austin, Texas alone who have never been reported as such? And that's very possible because, like we briefly mentioned earlier, these homeless don't seem to end up in the missing people reports that you and I would see online, of which there are supposedly only 20,000 active cases, which, even excluding the homeless problem, is a dramatic understatement. But I digress, because to think that almost 300 people have gone missing in Austin, Texas alone in roughly the past year seems pretty terrible, and I wonder if the city knows and isn't doing anything about it, or if even the city is unaware of this problem. And I want to emphasize that this man discusses people disappearing, not dying of an overdose, starvation, or such, but but people who are fully there one day and fully gone the next and are never seen again. We gotta emphasize, this is not just some overdose. I will admit, at this point in the narrative, I was still pretty baffled and was kind of struggling to believe that this was going on to the extent for which I believe it now is. So I decided to call Sunrise Navigation Church and see what they had to say on the matter and see if they really did have these missing posters. And unfortunately, despite leaving a message the day before, they didn't get back to me. So I called them again today, but when I got on the phone, I was told by the lady that she didn't have the authority or the knowledge to speak on this topic, and that she would give my number to someone in the media department that would be able to talk to me, but I've yet to hear from her, so if I do, I'll let you guys know. As of now, we'll let it stand though that the Sunrise Navigation Center does not deny the claims of all these missing homeless. Okay, so now then with the confirmation that this is happening in Austin, Texas at the scale we presume it is and that the homeless have reported it is happening at, then we have to ask the question of, is this just happening in Austin, Texas, or is this something bigger? And it's actually really simple to answer that question by going about 1,000 miles to the northwest to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And then to help us out even further, we're gonna push it back to 2 years in the past to 2023, when a local news station did a report on just this very topic, the disappearing homeless of Albuquerque, New Mexico.
On KOB4 at 6, a bit of a mystery, a concerning one at that. Multiple nonprofits in Albuquerque who help our homeless every day say people are disappearing off our streets. And they believe these mysteries are part of a nonprofit scam.
Until we do something, this is going to keep happening. And we're going to keep, indigenous people are still going to keep going missing from the streets.
Spencer Shaw spoke to local folks looking into this now. And Spencer, what do we know about this scam at this point?
Well, Tessa, Street Safe New Mexico says vans pull up to homeless folks, usually ones who are Native American, promising rehab and housing in Arizona. But those who do make it back here to Albuquerque say it was all a lie.
We are losing a huge number of the Native population out here in the street. And we don't know where they are. We really don't.
Street Safe New Mexico Executive Director Christine Barber estimates more than 100 people have gone missing since January. She says these white vans convince homeless people they can get free rehab and housing if they come with them to Arizona.
Once they're in Arizona, the people were made to sign up for a specific type of Native health insurance and also to sign up for Arizona food stamps. And then kicked out and stranded in Arizona. And so the whole Medicaid scam is they would then use that person's name, the rehab, so-called rehab, would then use that person's name, pretend they were a patient, and bill for services that they never rendered.
What started as one van has increased exponentially in the last couple of weeks.
Everyone out here knows someone who is missing. So we started taking down reports from people and just noting the different cars, and it has gotten so much worse in these past few weeks.
Barber gave us a business card that she says was given to a homeless person from the folks in one of those vans.
As far as I'm aware, they never followed up on this story, which is a huge L considering how deep of a story it is and the information that they seem to be getting. But there is nonetheless more that I found which will add to it. The first thing I noticed in the clip I showed you, the full thing is once again worth watching, is that this woman seems incredibly upset. This isn't just she suspects this is going on, she knows something is going on. But what's even more disturbing is that the people aren't returning. That is the note I really want to hammer down here. To me, it doesn't make sense to go through all the effort of taking homeless from a different state to bring them to your state just to leave them there so you have the evidence right there for the cops if they ever investigated. So then if these people aren't returning home and they aren't still in the state that they were taken to, then where could they be realistically? Which is a road that will lead you to a lot of speculation. Another thing to think about is that it's likely these are not all scam vehicles that are taking these people, and I would wager it's probably fewer than we think as we continue onwards. But in this video, they referenced a business card that was given to one of the homeless by one of these creepy van dwellers. And on this same business card, there was a phone number, and I called that phone number, obviously. So when I called it, I thought it's 2 years old, there's probably not a great chance that they're gonna pick up, which I was correct about, but it was weird nonetheless. I sat there on the phone with it ringing for over 2 minutes until I realized this phone's been ringing for 2 minutes. Whose ringer does this? That was weird thing number one, but the second weird thing for me was that I looked up the number online on an Osnet tool, and there is no record of the number ever existing, meaning that it's likely a burner phone number, the same as I used to call them. So we have a relatively in-the-know criminal organization that seems to be hiding their identity as much as possible. Okay, that's not altogether surprising, but there is more as we continue. Because if we start thinking about how many people a criminal enterprise like this would require, we're gonna start having to ask some questions. Look at the sheet that this woman has. We're talking about dozens of different vans and people who are all coordinating together to take these homeless. Whether it's for a benefits scam or something more, as we'll get into, is a different story. Either way, you're having to pay for all the vans, the people, the gas, the burner phones, the food for the homeless, the drugs to take the homeless, wherever you're gonna take the homeless, so you have to pay for that place too. So now we're running out of organizations that can afford to do this. And it's one thing if this were an organization working only in Albuquerque and only in New Mexico. That's one level of organization required. It's a whole different one when you're talking about homeless who are reporting in every region of America abductions with vans and drugs and offerings of food and tainted food. That's something else entirely. To operate a fully national network is truly a feat, and you need a level of coordination that isn't very common among most criminal organizations. And it makes me wonder if these are all connected rings, and if we ran up the food chain enough through all the shell companies like this one on that business card, we'd run into one guy or a group of guys. Who knows? And benefit scamming, as we talked about, is one thing. I'm sure that is happening, but I don't think it's the main thing, because the real money would be in organ trafficking or something along those lines, as we'll get into in a bit. But there's also a video I encountered of a homeless woman discussing just this very topic of what she thinks is happening. So give it a look now.
Not to mention all these missing girls, okay? Let's break off that.
The what?
The missing girls, okay? You look around, there's not very many of us out here. I'm like I'm the only one out here left in this area for the girls. Where are they going? Don't know.
I tend to take these sorts of testimonies at face value because this woman gains nothing by lying. I mean, who knows if she's even alive now, which is a dark thing to think about. And I've also seen enough other testimonies that I am inclined to believe her in what she's saying. What's more is abducting groups of women does make the most sense. They're easier to grab, more vulnerable, less likely to fight back, and they are the most desirable for slavery, if that's the level of depravity we think is going on here. And if these people already have an addiction, it's no question. You feed them drugs and then you don't tell them what you're going to do with them, and then they're gone. And who reports them, really? Because unfortunately, very few people actually care about the homeless in this country. Truly, the best that we can do as of now is to raise awareness on this topic and to do what people like this woman in Albuquerque were doing 2 years ago, which is compiling lists of what the homeless are saying is happening and getting descriptions, getting license plate numbers, and everything that we can need to bust a sort of ring like this. Because the police themselves, the feds, they're not going to go investigate it themselves. It's immaterial to them. But the other important thing to remember is that these are just 2 states. But like I said, there are reports of this across the whole country. And these reports coincide with noticeable declines in the government numbers of homeless, despite an incredibly worsening economy, to the point where we have mass layoffs, jobs being taken, jobs being shipped overseas, and we're at the point where inflation has made it so most families can barely afford to eat. So the idea that tens of thousands of homeless are somehow getting jobs is ridiculous. And that's a trend that it showed for years, were these small little upticks and downticks in homelessness. But with the most recent statistics, we saw an 18% jump in homelessness. Okay, the economy's bad now, but it's been bad for a while. So what's changed at this point that there's an 18% increase just now and not in any of the years prior? And at the same time, we have the Department of Education reporting millions of homeless based on their enrollment records and the children that they meet with. Come on, something is going on. Because at this point, if you have 700,000, 800,000, 1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million people living on the streets at various intervals throughout the year, then you have to wonder, would you really notice if 100 people went missing across America in a night? No, you wouldn't. Would you notice 500 people missing in America in a night? No, you probably wouldn't, because these are people who aren't known by many. Most people, when they think of homeless, think of fentanyl out zombies, which is sadly very common, but there are truly coherent homeless people who are just down and out and need help getting back on their feet. And this British man is a great example of that. Homeless since the age of 13, he's been living on the streets and seeing just about everything you could imagine. But when he was interviewed by the channel Mission Andrew, he had something very interesting to say. I recommend the full interview, but check out this clip.
People going around at the moment, getting the homeless, beating the living daylights out of us, injecting us with this nasty drug that kills you, and leaving their bodies. Like one was left against Nelson Mandela fountain, that statue down the Golden Mile.
Really, they had injected them to kill them and then left their body there.
Daylights out of them.
This on its own would just seem like terrible people to me, but something else has to be going on. If you think about what's going on in America with the laced food and the drugs, and then you have homeless reporting people coming up to the other homeless on the streets, drugging them, maybe even trying to take them, and then leaving them to die of a fake heroin overdose with a needle in their arm, that's another level of sadistic. And my 2 theories there is, or really 3, if you want to just go with a narrative of it's just some mean guys, but But if we were to think more coherently, there seems to be a trend. Perhaps these people fought back and got left that way, or perhaps these people got taken, and when they were brought back, they were left to die, so they can never give a testimony about what they experienced. I'm not sure. Once again, there's a lot of speculation here, but evidently something is happening. And once again, the reference to these 2 men abductions reminds me of the vans, where you have multiple people in a van driving up to the homeless trying to take them and offering them likely drugs once they're in the van. Just a thought.
Trafficking is like a real thing out here, like every day. People just disappear.
I'm hearing that a lot. Sometimes people show up in vans or weird cars, and they might even just dangle a little money or drugs in front of you so you get in the car, and then they disappear.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of girls have that happen to them.
You ever seen them again?
Some of them.
It's not even all that surprising to suggest that homeless are being human trafficked at a minimum here in this situation, because human trafficking of homeless has been going on for a long time. You can see this homeless woman talk about it in the clip we've watched, but there are countless other ones. Homeless are some of the most vulnerable people in America. They have no real way of reporting what happened to them. They don't have 4 walls to protect them, and they are seen as less than by most of society. It is a shame though to think that this woman at one point in time would have been living in an institution right now where she could have gotten some help, some real help, instead of just some handouts, where she could have had a safe place to sleep, where she didn't have to be worried about being raped or murdered or trafficked in the middle of the night. Unfortunately though, we shut all those places down. Some were flawed, I will admit, but I would imagine that was fewer rather than most. And I do find it rather dark that this lady then admits to not seeing most of these people ever again that were taken and picked up by these vans that are being reported, like this guy says, across the country. Another thing that's really stood out to me is what's happening with these homeless encampments. There is an aspect to this I agree with. I don't want to see a bunch of homeless people living on the street, living in tents, but we have to remember, if you kick them off the streets, where else are they gonna go? You can't send them to the jails because those are full. You can't send them to the homeless shelters because those are supposedly full as well. So where are they all going? In cases like this, where you see an entire homeless camp that once held 200 people, have all the people vanish overnight? Are you kidding me? Who does that make sense to? And the stuff's left there? I mean, isn't half the point of cleaning up these camps so that the environment doesn't look like we live in a dystopian movie? So then where are the people, and why was all their trash left behind if the point was to clean it up? And this camp itself appears to not just be in a downtown area, it seems to be at least slightly wooded. Which means if they're not the prime issue bothering people downtown, they don't get as much attention, and if they don't get as much attention, who is the one that came in here and moved them? Well, my main question is that I saw a rise while reading through the comments on some of these. If other 3-letter agencies are removing these people, where are the videos of them removing these people? Either body cams or footage taken from the people being removed or from bystanders? I would expect any of those things, but I've not seen a single video of that happening. I also get the eeriest and just most icky feeling knowing that there are reports and historical issues of people faking being government agents and taking people away. But most of all, you can't ignore the fact that there aren't videos of these camps being demolished. Another thing that really stood out to me was there are these videos of homeless shopping carts and homeless bags just sitting on the side of the street, which is your first and probably biggest no-no in homeless society, or really our society these days. You can't leave your stuff unattended. You'd have your friend watch it. So if we have a case where homeless are meant to be watching each other's stuff, and suddenly you have videos popping up online of people seeing homeless stuff sitting abandoned on the side of the road, what happened to the homeless people that owned those items, and what happened to the guy that was watching them? And why is this stuff still sitting there if this whole thing is about cleaning up the cities? Where are the people? There is this 2015 article though that I thought was very interesting from a news agency called truthcdm.com, and it's about this very phenomenon, and yet it was published 11 years ago. And one of the most eye-opening things for me was that in its references, it discusses a 2007 statistic in which there were 671,888 homeless in America living on its streets, which based on our information is an underestimate for that time. But in 2013, the HUD will then report that there were only 610,042 homeless living on American streets, meaning somewhere in the middle of one of the worst economic periods in American history, we somehow lost 61,000 homeless, yet there's no evidence they gained jobs or got gainful employment or a house, any of that. So then we're gonna have to ask where over 10,000 people went per year for 6 years straight. And the article itself suggests these people are disappearing. It goes beyond anything else I have seen. But this article, once again, reporting on an issue that had been happening for a while, then makes me wonder how long have these vans been going around, and if these vans are involved in these incidences as far back as 2013, 2014, apparently 07, because that's when more people were reported first missing. But what's most alarming about that 07 data is 2007 is when the HUD started sharing its data on American homelessness. Who's to say that going back to 1999, we weren't seeing these weird shifts in the number of people that were homeless, or going back to 1980 or 1970. How long has this been going on is what we're gonna have to start asking if something is really going on. All in all, I think this is a series we'll come back to, especially if the Sunrise Navigation Center gets back to me with some of these homeless people's information. But I do want to say that human trafficking is one of the largest industries on Earth. It is an industry that is valued in the hundreds of billions of dollars and is moving people constantly around Earth. You have people, we've seen it, Epstein. You have to get these children, you have to get the adults that were also involved in this from somewhere. So where did they come from? If we've only got 20,000 active missing persons cases, and that's the people who are reported on, like I said, I think that number is bogus anyway, you have to be getting these people from somewhere. And if they're not ending up on those databases, then perhaps they're coming from an unidentified source, like homeless people. We have an incident of an incredibly powerful politician in Nigeria who abducted a homeless person off the streets of one of his cities to sell his organs to a guy in London. So there is a whole lot of the stuff that has been going on. So it might be more so we're going to find out that this has been going on for a long time rather than this is just a new problem with these vans, with these abductions, with these injections of lethal doses of chemicals in Britain, with these reports of people being sold for whatever purposes. I don't know. Like I said, this video is pretty speculative, but this is a topic I wanted to get out there because I am worried about these people. At the end of the day, we might not like homelessness, but that means we got to solve the problem, not just ignore the problem. Homeless are still human beings too. They are our neighbors. They are ours to take care of, and we can do better. These people can get on their feet, and no one deserves to have this happen to them. And I know it seems crazy, but it's happening, you guys. So I'm gonna be on the lookout more, and I'd be curious to know more. So let me guys know what you think down below, and if you have any information, I'd be deeply grateful. Until next time, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.